Hello, everybody. Welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around Fantasy Premier League. My name's Suj.
My name's James.
Yeah. Yes, we all know that this episode might get a few more listens than regular after Super Sunday on what was Blank Gameweek 32. Super
I thoroughly
Sunday,
enjoyed Brighton against Manchester United,
because
personally.
there were goals galore in the Premier League.
One of the best 0-0s I've seen, actually.
Yeah, I didn't watch it, but it did look on the stats that it was quite entertaining. Excuse me. But in the Premier League, there was 7 goals, mate.
No, there were 4 at Bournemouth.
My team was scoring them all. Yours were conceding them all. What is going on?
I was going to say Newcastle and West Ham were taking turns to score goals, but actually that's not quite the case.
No, they took a few more turns than we did. And we're going to get into all of the action from the weekend because, yes, people were concerned about the state of Tottenham and what happened in the first
not. People are laughing at the state
minutes.
of Tottenham.
Yeah,
and neutrals should be laughing at it.
It wasn't great. But this was a week that you and I were both on free hits. Mm-hmm. And it feels like on Twitter that a lot of people were on free hit. It's not in terms of the grand scheme of the game, but there were a fair few free hits played.
No, I think it was about 55% of the top 10K, I think, maybe.
We're on free hit.
Yeah, I think I might have that wrong, sorry. But yeah, I think probably slightly more than half are kind of engaged players, probably.
Yeah, and I think I'm pretty sure I heard this stat on above average, but I'm not sure. I think 4% of people on free hit got a red arrow, and then the rest were green. So,
oh right,
I'm pretty sure. Don't hold me to it. Go and ask.
I guess it would have been worse for people if, say, Newcastle had kept a clean sheet and Brentford had kept a clean sheet. If you take me going into this week, I would have had 6 players, of which that would have featured double Brentford defence and double Newcastle defence. So obviously between them, they've ended up with Naffle, Botman and Trippier, Henry and Raya, Watkins and Tony for the record, who had been my other 2. So without any transfers, I'd have got 19 this week. But I would have brought in Mo Salah as a free transfer, certainly captain that, put 14 on top, 33. So to finish on 73, I'll take that.
Yeah, I would have had Van Dijk, Naffle, Trippier, Naffle, Ben White, Naffle, Saka, a goal in the dying death.
A goal and assist for Saka,
earlier as well. And Isak, who did okay, but literally you're talking about similar 15, 20 points maybe. Like Botman.
Do you know anyone who was telling everyone to get Alexander Isak all week?
No.
No, me neither.
The free hit team you ended up with was, sir?
It was. And as I said on my deadline stream, there's one regret with this free hit team, and there's only 2 Newcastle players in it. Joe Linton, I had first sub. I could have done with stuck in James Maddison in and got some jam, couldn't I? Really fancied him do well as he did. So I was Sam Johnson in goal, 10-pointer. Yep. Delighted with that because I was very reluctant to get him, in all honesty, because I could only foresee it being a 2 or a 6-pointer, basically. So to get the 10 out of it, basically because he saved 5 shots quite early in the game, and bar one really decent effort from Alex Iwobi. They were all very straightforward. I went Trent, I went Trippier, I went Alex Moreno, who got taken off just after Brentford scored. He was about to come off. If it had been 2 minutes later, he'd have banked a clean sheet, actually. But actually, probably disappointed that he only got 65 minutes out of that. I went Martinelli, Saka, Jesus as the 3 Arsenal. I'd been on Martinelli, Saka, Odegaard pretty much all week. And then when setting up the stuff for the deadline stream, I knew that I would captain Jesus over Odegaard if that was the choice, so why not just go Jesus? And actually, you can look at it afterwards and go, Odegaard got 5 more points. Well, yeah, if Gabriel Jesus could hit a cow's arse with a banjo, then we'd have done quite well out of that. The 3 Liverpool I went was Trent, I went with Gakpo, and I went with Mo Salah, captain. I'll be honest, it was always, from once I watched the Monday Night Football, it was always Gakpo for me. So that's not one I can look at and go, I could have gone Jota. I was never really going to go Jota, in all honesty.
Attacker as well, formation-wise, for some people, was the debate. What was your bench like?
I also went Isak, obviously.
Yeah.
And Ollie Watkins. Bench, like many this week, absolute fire. I wish I could have bench boosted this free hit. Joe Linton, Gay, Anderson, Leno. Should probably be glad that...
How many points is that?
A lot. 26. And you got loads as well,
24 on mine as well. Funny, you were saying just before we started recording, in the end yesterday was Isak versus my 3 West Ham. And he almost kept up with them, but he didn't by 5 points, which is the difference between us this week, is 5 points.
Only because Eddie Howe took him off.
Well, saved him, or saved you. I'm not sure which one. I mean, there's so many similarities in our free hits, James. Trent and Salah, yes. Saka and Martinelli, the same. Ollie Watkins, the same. Trippier, the same.
You went Jesus as well.
And I went Jesus as well. In the same way that you saw Monday Night Football and went Gakpo's the one, I saw it and was like Jota. I'm also very emotionally invested in Diogo Jota from history. Like, he's always been a good asset and he's always been priced cheap in this game. I've never looked at Jota and thought, oh, that's a bit expensive, that's a lot of money. He's always been priced fairly. I thought, sod it.
Talking about a guy who hadn't scored for a year.
Yeah, I know, but he had scored on Monday, hadn't he?
Yeah, I know that.
So, and he'd also spent a lot of time injured. So the capability with Jota's actually not in doubt. It's one of those where form is temporary, class is permanent. I think he's a class player, so he was going to come good at some point.
Monday night was so funny in the sense that first half hour of the game was get Jota off. Jota's terrible. Jota can't find a red shirt by the end of the game. Right, get Jota in my team.
Yeah,
our people had flipped because he scored twice.
Exactly.
So
I ended up with triple West Ham. Now this was
I couldn't believe when
crazy.
I saw that.
But also it wasn't fuck it, let's see what happens, Hail Mary stuff. But like, Bowen had been playing well for a while. And the last couple of games he'd gotten involved, he'd looked lively, he looked sharp, he was giving defenders trouble running down the sides. I thought Bowen's in good form. I was going to go Fabi as goalie. I know a lot of people going Johnson, and Johnson's on my bench. And I looked at your team. A couple of things happened. I looked at your team, and you'd had Johnston and Moreno. And I was debating Fabianski and Moreno or doubling up, like Fabianski and Zuma together. And I thought, well, okay, the likelihood is that you're only going to get one clean sheet out of the two if you split. I didn't think that they could both come in for a clean sheet, but I thought only one would. So I'm either going to be one clean sheet behind you, or if both come in with a clean sheet, I could be ahead of you. Fabio, I think, might even have been up for a bit of bonus had he not... Well, in the end, we scored 4 goals, so probably not, but he got a yellow card. He did make 5 saves in the game. He needed to make a 6th, and he might have not got a yellow card.
Fabio got a yellow card. What was he time wasting at 3-0?
I'm not sure what he got it for. I just remember it coming up on screen and saying I had a dodgy stream yesterday. Anyway, in the end...
Wish I'd have had a dodgy stream.
In the end, I watched
Tottenham in Ultimate HD.
Ultra HD.
Oh, yeah, Ultra HD. Yeah.
I was listening. I didn't fancy Bournemouth. I thought we were going to win 2-0. I'd predicted 2-0. I thought we were going to keep a clean sheet. Now, this is a West Ham team now that's only lost 1 in 10. And I know there's a few Ropey League games in there.
Sack the manager.
Nah, there's a few Ropey League games in there called Ropey Conference League. We need a nickname for the Conference League. Like, we call it a Ropey League for Europa. What's the Conference League going to be? Either way, 1 in 10.
The competition that Tottenham managed to fuck up best next year.
Yeah,
if we finish in the top 8, or if we finish 7th rather, we might not do that.
And so I gambled it. Double defensive, and
A bit disappointed to only get 18 out of it in hindsight, though.
Yeah.
From a 4-0.
I think Fabianski could have done a bit. He might have done a bit better. Zuma was a bit attacking. Like, we scored 3 goals from corners, right? So, but I'll take it. Look, 78 points. It's got me a rank rise of like 60k from 190 to 130.
Good stuff.
And I've got wildcard up my sleeve. I have no idea what my team looks like for this week. Let's have a look.
It would help if you did know.
Yeah.
This week's bad for most people because the fixtures are rough. Although some of them look a little bit better than they might have done before the weekend.
I'm
looking at you, Manchester United.
I've got Van Dijk's got West Ham. That's perfectly fine. Triple.
Well done. You've just lost 1 in 10. Make your mind up.
Yeah, I know, but it's right. It's not like I need to transfer him out or it's a shit fixture. Newcastle, I've got triple. They're okay against Everton away. Brighton, I've got double. They're okay against Nottingham Forest. I've got triple, in fact, if I didn't want to play Kepa against Brentford. So really, Kane at home to Man United isn't great, but Kane's Kane, and it's a home fixture. It's the Arsenal City playing each other issue which is Ben White, Saka, Grealish, Haaland. Now, there's no defensive in there other than Ben White.
I don't think there is an issue there. Let's just bench Ben White and get on with it.
If there was defensive, if I had loads of defensive, then it's a bit more of an issue, but there's not. So I'm not overly worried, and I'm fairly set, and I'll be wildcarding into 34, and the simple reason is I just don't have...
So you're not wildcarding now, you're going to wildcard in 34,
yeah.
And your bench boost is gone, right?
Bench boost is gone. Yeah. So my last chip is my wildcard, and I'll be playing that next week. And onwards and upwards we go. The hunt for a 5-figure rank, James, is all I'm after. I've never had one in the 6 years of this shitty podcast.
My hunt to try and catch you has not got closer this week because of your triple West Ham. A little cheeky Bournemouth goal there would have helped. I think there's 25 points between us.
Yep.
I think I want to say what's your rank?
131k.
131. I'm at 226 after scoring 73. So. With you a wild card in hand, you should definitely beat me from here.
Yeah, I think so. With the 6 weeks left, I mean, I was listening to. I caught a bit of Andy's knee jerk last night. It was proper funny. Just 15 minutes when I was cooking some dinner, and someone had sent him a message saying, "I'm 170 points behind in my mini league. What do I need to do to catch the winner?" He was like, "Fuck all! You can't do anything. 170 points. That's 30 points a week." Yeah, for 25 points for you is doable. It's like one big captaincy goes off. But the likelihood is now, of the 6 remaining weeks, how many is Haaland going to be both our captains for? And we're going to have similar teams. I need to find a way to get back to Mo Salah and stuff. But all more than doable. Kane is going to be expendable for me now. So
I think that's worth mentioning. So you Haaland captain this week, despite the fact they're playing Arsenal?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so
EO
for me.
Stuff, mate.
I don't think the alternatives are good enough, despite everything I say about Tottenham. Like to punt Rashford over it doesn't feel right. So no, I think Haaland. I think looking ahead, you're right to say there's every case just to say captain him for what's left. The 34 double, the 37 double, 36 to go to Everton. 38 last day of the season, maybe a bit of a crapshoot. I mean, 35 when they're at home to Leeds might be the one that looks like it could be the rotation one possibly. And I think it might be in there somewhere. That's obviously in between City's 2 games with Real Madrid. That feels the most likely one. 36 is there's 5 days between the Madrid second leg and Everton away. So you'd imagine he shouldn't have any problems for that one particularly. It's the Leeds one. With the tighter turnaround, Wednesday Madrid, Saturday Leeds, Tuesday Madrid is the case there. That's the one maybe to gamble. But then if you gamble against, that's the one of all of them you'd think, okay, now I'm to Leeds. I definitely want to captain him and do the damage from the bench, couldn't he? Mind you, I guess 36 actually, although obviously go to Everton, you'd make a case for like an Isak or a Trippier, wouldn't you? As Newcastle will double. We should probably cover that as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's get into a little bit of chat about the fixtures as well. I need to figure out, and when we go through the games, like this is the week, I need a 1 week punt. Because if I'm wildcarding in 34 and I've got 1 free transfer, I need a 1 week punt. So and I'm not sure where I'm going to go with it.
Which Manchester United players have you got?
Rashford. He's sat there on my bench and he's not flagged anymore.
Did you see how easy it was for Alexander Isak to get in behind?
What, United?
No, behind Tottenham.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. I mean, I'll play Rashford, but then what do you think? Like, add a...
Martial, maybe.
Martial.
Yeah.
Potentially. It's a conversation to be had, but I just don't think you guys can be as bad on Thursday because otherwise that new stadium of yours might be set on fire or something.
Holy shit, Tottenham. My expectations were low, but fucking hell.
Yeah.
Anyway, doubles. So it's
talk
come
to me
out.
About fixtures now.
Yeah, just briefly.
The known knowns.
We've obviously got the 34 fixtures. Doubles next week for Brighton, Liverpool, Manchester City, Manchester United, Fulham, West Ham. We knew that. The 36 and 37 doubles have been confirmed what we were expecting. So it's Newcastle, Brighton is on the Thursday, game week 36. And on the game week 37 Wednesday, the Brighton Man City game. And on the Thursday, Manchester United against Chelsea. None of that should particularly come unexpected if you've been listening to us and the majority of other schedule predictors, if you will. That's what we've been thinking. And that pretty much was almost guaranteed once City beat Bayern Munich in the Champions League as well. So it means, I think, that many of us are heading towards a few teams. So you've obviously got Brighton and the two Manchester clubs are doubling in 34 and 37.
Yep.
And Brighton also double in 36. You got Newcastle got a double 36. Liverpool got a double 34. And to be honest, other than
Newcastle don't double in 34 though, do they?
No, but they've got Southampton at home.
Yeah.
If you wildcard this week, you ain't going without Newcastle, mate.
Well, I've already got 3 of them. So.
I would just add a caveat on that I think there's every chance Isak won't start against Southampton, just because they play Everton Thursday night, Southampton Sunday, the tighter turnaround. They obviously want to be cautious with him. He's absolute fire. He's brilliant. So I'd just be cautious of that. I'd almost rather have sort of Tony at home to Forest maybe in 34 than Isak at home to Southampton. Tony, play if it comes to that sort of thing. But I think Martial and Jota, for example, have now put their hands up as forward options. But the majority of us, whether wild carding, as some will do this week and in 34, those obviously bench boosting will do it this week now, are all looking for similar players, similar teams. And that also goes for the people like myself who are obviously out of chips now. It's a concentration completely towards that group of 5 teams or so, unless it is enablers to facilitate. Now, once we get to game week 38, 1 week punts and stuff, can people choose to hold their Arsenal players? These sort of things, it's fine. But in terms of actual investment of buying, you can cut off 75% of the game now.
Yeah, I think
in terms of teams.
I agree. Unless someone's really chasing and they want to be uber differential. But
you can be differential within those teams, like going for a Martial, for example. A lot of people have gone Cody Gakpo on free hit this week. Not worked out. No one's going to buy him now this week. It's all going to be about Jota, right? So someone like that is a differential for you. Within your Brighton players, the McAllisters, Mitomas, March, and Sisso, Ferguson, if he's available, the defensive players. There's differentials even within the teams. Manchester City defensive. Laporte's, these sort of players. Trent versus Konate, for example, puts a big difference in terms of your budget that might allow you different things. So the differentials lie still really within these teams. Yes, of course, you can hold your Kanes and your Watkins and your Sakas if that's what you want to do. But for new investment, no. I mean, if you're wildcarding this week, bench boosting 34, arguably I would have someone like Watkins as great for Fulham at home, but I'd be looking to move him on when he goes to Manchester United for a doubler at the weekend. So
yeah.
That's the problem with the fact that we've ended up with so few doubles, as in the number of teams, that the concentration is so fierce on them. And the problem is as well, there isn't much of a case. It's not just because they've got doubles. Brighton have obviously got lots to play for and have been one of the best attacking sides since the World Cup. They've got 3 double game weeks from the 6 that remain, and they've got Nottingham Forest this week. Manchester United have got extra fixtures, looking to qualify for obviously the Champions League, which they probably will do, but they're arguably more under threat than Newcastle currently. United have got good fixtures. Newcastle are obviously on a great run. They've got that double 36. City are obviously going for the title. Decent fixtures on the whole. Overly, it's only probably Fulham, West Ham, where there's the case to say, the double's not great. I mean, Fulham have got Liverpool and City. You've also got to go to City as well as going to Palace. They're the only ones with a double you could almost write off. But what I would say is, I think for those bench boosting in 34 and wildcarding now, strongly consider Leno or Fabianski, I think, as one of your 2 keepers. But even then, you're probably not starting it in any other game. You wouldn't go like a Jared Bowen. Jared Bowen's in form now. You're not going to pick him over one of those others from the other teams.
No, so
the midfield arguably is between sort of 6 or 7 players.
My midfield is already McAllister, Mitoma, Grealish, Rashford. I've got those 4, and Saka. I just swapped Saka for Salah. I haven't changed anyone in my team, mate. And this is a wildcarding with all City, all Liverpool, all Brighton, and all Man United and Newcastle. That's it, and I'm set. And then I'm chucking a Soufal and a cheap player elsewhere. It's going to be quite samey for people wildcarding. We are really
the advantage is to the wildcarders, of course, but everyone else is chasing in the same direction.
My only
generally.
Thing I need to really think about is between 34 and 37. Obviously, Liverpool don't double in 37. They've got a Villa, haven't they? I think it's at home.
That's correct.
So if I've got 3 Liverpool for the double in 34, do I want to come off them for doublers in 37? or not. But there's only 2 doubles in 37.
But then something like some of these moves are going to be so template. For example, like I've just made a case to say Isak might not start against Southampton. Really difficult to say. We'll talk about it again on Friday following the Thursday night games. But something like, I'm going to go Jota now. I'm going to go Jota to Isak in 36 is...
telegraphed.
If I leave Kanate there as a placeholder, I'm going to go that to my second Newcastle player. Or if I go Alisson this week, I'm going to go to Pope in 36. These sort of things are like quite telegraphed at the moment. So I think the difficulty a little bit will be more like yourself is arguably the decision, because your team almost definitely for 34 is probably going to have 11 doublers, and I'm going to guess you're going to bench people like Trippier.
Yeah.
Yeah? You're not going to not go Kieran Trippier. You're going to want him for 36, right?
Yeah. I'm going to keep him.
Chances are you're going to have a big bench score this week, which is why people bench boosting should do pretty well in 34, because you've got the likes of Newcastle, Brentford, Leicester, maybe the other one with like an Iheanacho if you feel brave. I think he might become a topic if Iheanacho does well at Leeds tomorrow night, considering they've got Everton at home on Monday. But again, for someone like me who's not wildcard, am I going to go there for 1 week and move it on? Your big choice will actually be, I think, between United, City, Liverpool, Brighton, deciding which one you only go with 2 with to start. Yeah. Arguably, of the 4, United have probably got the hardest double, with Villa at home and Brighton away. The other 3 are decent. Sure, Brighton play United, but the other fixture's good at home to Wolves. Only note on Brighton, I would say, is I think looking a bit further ahead and obviously reflecting on the game yesterday, and they put up a really good effort, just let themselves down in front of goal a little bit. It was a very even game. Neither side particularly deserved to lose, I didn't think. But their squad is thin. Like the quality that they've left on all the big hitters, basically. The McAllisters, Marches, Matomas have left them all on the pitch when a few of them were beginning to look quite fatigued. I mean, Matoma nearly ran out of ideas, to be honest, against Aaron Wan-Bissaka. Again, not that he played badly. Now that plays into a narrative of saying, well, that's strong, because clearly 120 minutes, there's nothing there to change it. These guys are always going to play in doubles. Look at someone like Bruno Fernandes, who was getting flogged to shit when they were in Europe. Now they're out of Europe. That's not going to change, is it? Well, there were rumours that potentially he had some ice strapping around his shin or calf when he came off yesterday. I saw Kelly Summers had tweeted about that.
Yeah, there had been a few injury scares around Bruno.
But it's a concentration now of about 4 or 5 teams, to be honest. So if you want me to give you best Wolves differentials, I'm just going to direct you towards Bradley Parker, who's on Clash of Correspondents next week.
Nice segue. Let's talk about some of these games. Then we've got 8 games to get through, some quicker than others. And like we said, there might be less relevance from an FPL point of view.
I think at the end, we'll probably just do a little summary on the teams that didn't play this weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think someone like Victor Lindelof. No, like Victor. Yeah. Don't go there. Someone like Victor Lindelof, 4.1, really put his hands up. I thought he was the best player on the pitch yesterday. Really good.
And we don't know. Obviously, there's a lot of injury issues there at centre back.
The rumour, Miss Martinez is obviously out for the season. The rumour is it might be the same for Varane. Is the rumour now? And
then it's going to be Maguire and Lindelof, isn't it? Luke Shaw maybe centre back.
Either way, it would definitely be Lindelof. On what I watched yesterday, 4.1.
Arsenal, Southampton, 3-3.
What a dramatic
game.
Fuming, why?
Well, it was a case of where's my FPL points up until towards the end. To be fair, Saka and Martinelli did give me points. It was Jesus that didn't. But the draw was actually the best possible result in the end, because I want to see competitive football. I also want Arsenal to win the league, but I want to see competitive football. But I didn't want Southampton to win because we're in the relegation battle with them. It's not anymore, but if they'd won and they'd gone up to 27, 28 points, it's still very tight. But it worked in our favour. So the draw was the best result that I could see. But disappointing for the Gooners. Disappointing. 3 in a row draws, that is. Nothing was deserved. It wasn't undeserved for Southampton.
I'd obviously done the deadline stream Friday, finished it, obviously watched the game. I sat on the sofa, which I don't normally do, and I had the volume on really low. It's like, I'm not bothered. She's like, turn it up. I was like, Arsenal are going to destroy these, don't worry about it. So obviously, Alcaraz scored so early on. Was it 50-odd seconds? Unbelievable. The 2 quickest goals in the Premier League this season have both been scored by away teams at the Emirates. Philip Billing, obviously, the other. I don't think Jacob Murphy quite got into the first minute yesterday. And she went, don't get excited, because like there's so long to go. I said, I'm not. And then the second goal happened, which was actually Saka gave the ball away. And Alcaraz played this beautiful ball inside Gabriel. If you watch it back, show your kids about Walcott's movement. It's so good. A whole way through, he shows outside, outside, outside. And then it gets a point where Gabriel's like, I'm going to shut that off. And he tells Alcaraz with eyes and arms where to play the pass. And he plays it perfectly. A little bit of criticism on Ramsdale, who obviously got criticised heavily for the first goal.
Yep.
Every time I watch that Walcott goal back, I can't help but look at it and think someone like Alisson, and I'm not saying he would have saved it, but actually would have closed the angle. He'd have been on top of it. Ramsdale's nearly back on his line when Walcott has the shot. So it goes 2-0, and I didn't say nothing, Suj. And she looked at me, and she was like, close your mouth, because I must have been positioned like proper gawping at what am I watching here. And then Martinelli scored not long afterwards, after this strange little huddle they have. And you still think from there, they'll go and win this 3-4-2.
Yeah, I did as well. I just
whatever.
thought good, actually, that they were losing 2-1 because it'll give them the impetus to actually have to attack and score goals. And that's fill your boots time
And
for
it
FPL
did.
points.
And to be honest, Barca,
Too
they
late.
had some shoddy moments in the first half, and Ramsdale particularly had a bad day. But I couldn't look at the first half and think, Arsenal were terrible. It wasn't like that. They went in 2-1 down, and they probably deserved to, but they weren't terrible. Like
they weren't terrible for the first half an hour against us. They weren't terrible in the first half an hour in the first half against Liverpool.
They looked like they were going to hurt Southampton. It looked like the sort of game that could end like it did, like 3-3. Then Southampton changed system at half-time, which I thought was really strange, because the thing for me watching the game was Arsenal were very, very vulnerable. And as much as Arsenal were having chances, it looked like Southampton could score again. So Sellers changed it from basically a 4-4-2 off the ball with basically Walcott played up front, Adam Armstrong played wide left, Elianusi played wide right, and Alcaraz kind of dropped in to make a third midfielder on occasion. But he switched it up, he went to 5-3-2, took Alcaraz off, who'd obviously scored and assisted in the first half and looked really good. And they sat in. And they obviously nicked their own goal from a corner. Kelechichar makes it 3-1. This time I did cheer because I'm thinking they are banging trouble here. And even at that point I was thinking, I'll take a draw here. This will do. For those who don't know, obviously Arsenal not winning is the only joy in my life at the moment. And actually, to be honest, Arsenal looked shot for ideas. They didn't have a shot on target until in the half, till Odegaard's goal that made it 3-2. And had the odd chance, Gabriel Jesus missed one really good chance straight after Southampton scored. But the whole vibe, the ground was beginning to empty. Go back and look at it. 5 minutes to go, the ground looks half empty. They're all fucking there again when Saka equalised.
Yeah.
How did they get back in?
I have no idea.
I'm pretty sure football stadiums are no readmittance, but was there just too many? They all poured back in when obviously they heard the cheer. Probably. I bet there's a lot of Arsenal fans physically left the stadium and managed to get back in, I'm sure. And then obviously Saka scored. There's 8 minutes to go with added time. And you're thinking it's absolutely inevitable that they'll score. And that last 8 minutes was unbelievable drama. What Arsenal had to keep doing, and they worked one brilliant situation, which was like the equaliser, just keep playing it into the box because Southampton were so deep, running up on top of the goalkeeper. Stop shooting from distance unless you're Odegaard, and stop. All they had to do was keep playing the ball into the box, and the amount of blocks. I know Arsenal didn't have a shot on target in the second half, but the amount of blocks and near misses and stuff, it was just chaos. Were you watching it live?
No.
Mate,
I switched it off.
Drama
3-1.
of the highest level. And what will get forgotten here, and obviously I'm there as a Tottenham fan thinking, don't let it. It was like the Bournemouth thing again. If they managed to win this one, it'd have been even bigger than the 3-2 against Bournemouth, because on this occasion they really had run out of ideas. But what got lost in it was for Southampton, what a blow. When Matt was on COTC, he didn't give them a prayer at Arsenal, and I don't suppose any other Southampton fans would have. But one of the things we did say was, because of what they had left in fixtures, it wasn't like most teams could treat, going to Arsenal as a free swing. But Southampton were already at the stage where they have to be getting points really, really quickly.
4 points off safety.
And these three would have been, if they'd have won that and then they've got Bournemouth at home this week, you'd have thought, real chance. I wouldn't rule them out just yet because I think those above them are pretty shit as well. I think it speaks volumes for the league that the team bottom went to the team that was top and at times outplayed them. They had a period of possession, Suj, with about 5 minutes to go. The away fans were olaying, mate. Arsenal aren't putting pressure on the ball. It was done.
Yeah,
it was finished. And then you can't believe by the end of it, Arsenal haven't won it. It was a brilliant, brilliant spectacle for the Premier League. And Arsenal do deserve credit for getting something out of it. It's weird to be 3-1 down with like a minute to go, get something out of it, and everybody walked out. They're probably depressed. Yeah. Imagine every fan left the ground unhappy. And now, of course, they know it's 5 points over City when it should have been 7. And they could have afforded themselves the defeat. They'll know now if they lose on Wednesday, 2-point advantage with City having 2 in hand. I wouldn't say curtains, but
it's looking that way.
They're not in the position that they should be. And even now, winning on Wednesday, one thing I maintained all along was if Arsenal win at the Etihad, they will win the league. Now, if they win, they go 8 clear with City having 2 in hand. If City win them, it's only a 2-point difference. And you look at Newcastle yesterday and the goal difference and know that Arsenal would still have to go to Newcastle and win probably. So now it does look like it's swung in City's favour. You have to say that. I wouldn't rule them out yet, but I note this morning, not been confirmed, but I know David Ornstein from The Athletic was breaking a story this morning saying Saliba is out of Wednesday and highly unlikely to make the Chelsea game next Tuesday. If Saliba's out, I think every Arsenal fan will tell you they are very, very concerned about Rob Holding against Erling Haaland.
Yeah.
I think it'll be high scoring. I wouldn't be surprised if the game ends up like 3-2.
Yep.
So my general take on your Arsenal assets, your Martinelli, Sakas and stuff, play them.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, that would be my take. I don't see... Arsenal were too good to go to City and get battered. Too good. They will have spells in the game where they dominate City because they're a very good football side. I just feel like the confidence now... Remember what I said to you this time last week? I discussed with Clayton about like you can fuck up at Liverpool but don't fuck up at West Ham. Now it's worse.
Mentioning Clayton, tomorrow, People's Poll.
He is, yeah.
You're going to be previewing the game?
No, there's 3 options if you want to vote for it. And we're going to highly likely release it after the deadline. Obviously, it's FPL deadline tomorrow, just because it's not going to be FPL related. So we're going to look at either a combined team between the two now, pick a best 11, an all-time Premier League best 11, which would be a nightmare, the amount of names you'd have to
between the two of them.
Yeah, just those two. A nightmare, which players you'd have to leave out. My God.
Oh, it'd be ridiculous.
I mean, if you went one up front, like you can't have Aguero. Like, what the hell?
Or Henry. Or what would you do? Play him wide left?
I wouldn't take that liberty, but yeah, that's probably what we do. Yeah,
4-4-2, Henry and Haaland.
Or we're going to open up to a Q&A on the two clubs, if that's what you want to vote for, just non-FPL related, just specifically on City and Arsenal, where they're at, which will kind of link to a preview of the game. That's available to vote on to about 5:30ish on my Twitter account.
Let's talk about Fulham 2, Leeds 1. After this result, when I looked at the table, I was like, how are Leeds not in the relegation zone? Because they've been on... It feels like they're in shit form, conceding a lot of goals. They've lost again. But it's that win a few weeks ago against Nottingham Forest, 2-1, that now is proving really, really important. I think at the moment, obviously, they're on 28 points. Their biggest saving grace might be goal difference, because theirs is better than everyone else below them. Forest and Bournemouth have shit goal difference, 32, 33. Southampton, 29. So it's going to count as an extra point, really.
I think of all the games where there's teams near the bottom play each other, I don't think Leeds can lose tomorrow night at home to Leicester. Fucked if they do.
That would put Leicester above them.
Watching the first half of this, after the drama from the Friday night game, was like sticking pins in your eyes, mate. Yeah. Honestly, it was awful. It was one of the worst halves of football I've seen all season. And for Leeds specifically, I spoke about my concerns when Jesse Marsch got sacked, that there was something there. Now, on the results, you couldn't argue that he deserved to get the sack. But what I would definitely say is I look at this Leeds team now, and from being a team, you'd go, they're too open, but you'd look at things like they're high energy, they're a good pressing team, they've got good young players, and the good young players bit hasn't changed, obviously. But I look at that on Saturday now, and having obviously watched the game Monday night as well, and go, what are you? Like, I don't know what they are. I feel like they're a club who had a brilliant identity under Bielsa, and I know Leeds fans were extremely proud of that, which was always going to make Marsh's task difficult. But actually, the progression of Marsh, it wasn't a million miles away in terms of off the ball. It wasn't as man-to-man orientated, but the idea of high-energy stuff generally stayed with Leeds. It's like someone's popped a balloon on them, mate. They're just really ordinary now.
Yep.
They're the only fixture that Tottenham have got left that I think Tottenham will win. We go to Leeds last day. If I think my team's going to beat someone at the moment, you are in hella trouble.
Yeah, you're away last day of the season.
Yeah,
we play them second to last. That's our last home game the week before. If they're coming to our place, they're not going to beat. In current form, they're not going to beat us.
Well, they've got Leicester and Bournemouth in the next two, and Leeds are very capable of getting 6 points in those two games.
But if they win them, you know they're going to win them. I don't
think they will.
3-2 or 4-3. They'll win them because they'll outscore the opposition.
I think tomorrow's game will be high scoring.
Yeah,
defensively, they are the other problem as well is the goalkeeper, for whatever reason, looks like he's really shot of confidence, Meslier. I know there was some discussion within the Leeds community about playing Joel Robles in goal. It's not any better. Meslier didn't cover himself in glory at the weekend either. They played Cooper at centre-back, and I know why Grassi has done that. It's because he's got leadership and organisational skills. And actually, he was probably the pick of Leeds players actually during the game. And Voba came back in at left-back. Voba's a physical player, and they're better for having him back as well. But you can't look at them. I think of all the teams down there, you can't look at them ever and think there's a clean sheet in them. And you're almost at the stage we used to discuss with Leicester. You've got to be scoring 2 or 3 goals to win a game of football, and it feels like that. And they're capable, just good young players like Nonso, Sinistera and stuff. But they've got players in offensive positions who are underwhelming. Brandon Aronson, I quite like. He's high energy. He never strikes you like he's going to get returns or anything. I think Jack Harrison had a poor game on Saturday personally. And the biggest one of all, which people at Leeds I think will notice, is Tyler Adams being injured, is a massive blow. Weston McKennie has not come in and performed well, in my opinion. Him and Rocker suddenly look a little bit light in midfield, and I'm very, very concerned for them because Fulham didn't have to do anything to win this game and win it comfortably. It was a shock when Leeds did get their goal because the game was dead.
Fulham have got obviously a double in 34, but it is City and Liverpool. The only Fulham player...
Good fixtures either side, though.
Yeah, Leno as goalkeeper cover is always fine. Like, goalkeeper for one of these teams is okay. The only outfield player that I'd really look at, and I can't, is Pereira because of his price at 4.4, is still good. But I'm looking at a 5-man midfield, and it includes 2 Brighton midfielders that are 5 point whatever and 5 point whatever. So if I needed the money, and I might need to find money to get Trent, do I sacrifice Rashford for Pereira? Do I sacrifice Grealish for Pereira? I don't think it's going to happen. I just don't think it's going to be worth it.
And don't laugh, if Tottenham have had a double, then selling Harry Kane would be much harder, for example. And I think in that case, then you'd be looking at sort of like a Haaland, Kane, and then an Isak or a Watkins or whatever. Suddenly you don't want the 5-man midfield as much, right?
I'm looking at a Haaland, Jota.
That's what I'm saying. You're looking at a 2. That's what most people are going to look for here. Yeah, most
3-man, Haaland, Jota, Isak.
Yeah? So someone like Pereira is more useful for you, or are you just going to give yourself the benching headache every week?
Well, yeah. I mean, I've got McAllister and Mitoma. I'd rather have March and Mitoma, but I might just I could sacrifice McAllister.
In any case, if you go 3 up front in 34, you ain't going to play Pereira anyway.
No, it'd be bench cover, but it's 4.4. It's as good as bench cover as you're going to get with a double in 34.
I can't make the case, having watched the game. I know Harry Wilson scored, and I'd said that if I was free hitting and gone for Fulham play, he's the one actually I would have gone for him this week because I wouldn't have needed to save the money on Pereira. But I couldn't make a case to go Harry Wilson over, say, the Brighton mids at the moment.
Not possible.
So I think it's Pereira if it enables. Leno, I think those who are wildcarding and have the bench boost left should consider him, because I've looked at it this morning in terms of what I'd do, and I think it does kind of fall into a Leno versus Fabianski conversation that should be considered. Doesn't have to be that way, but I think it should be considered. If you want a defensive one, Ream's the only one that I'd be fully confident keeps his place fully. Robinson over Tete at the moment, because I feel like Silva's just liable to just throw Cedric out for a game. That won't make them better defensively either. But I think it's Leno, Pereira, Skip.
Brentford 1, Aston Villa 1. Where's Ollie Watkins? Did he play?
Yeah.
Hey, where is he? I need him.
He had a quieter day.
Bought him in Sky. Had him on a free hit. Having said that, I also bought Diogo Jota in Sky, mate. 17 points cleaned up.
Did ya?
I also bought Maddison.
I bought Maddison.
He didn't
as
play.
well.
That's a shout out for
Can
Wednesday's
I just
podcast.
say, just in case we forget, people being annoyed about people getting Pereira's points off the bench for Maddison.
Nah.
Listen,
that's the game.
Honestly,
that's the
if
game.
you have free hitted and gone, I'm too scared of the points on my bench. No, you should pick a strong bench on a free hit in case this sort of thing happens. Pereira's obviously an ideal choice for that. What are we talking about?
Brentford 1, Villa 1.
Yeah.
Ivan Toney, 19 league goals this season. This is close enough that in a couple of seasons previously, you'd be talking about it'd be up there for Golden Boot, you know.
Brilliantly consistent.
He's been good this year. Second season syndrome, none of that.
Can score in any game. Yeah. Clear talisman. I'm
not going to get suspended now.
Yes, and as I mentioned earlier, him versus Isak at the weekend, because I know that I don't have Isak in my team currently. Obviously, I had him yesterday because I'm not that daft. But Tony was always for me. If he can escape this yellow, what a brilliant differential he'll be against Forest at the weekend as a single game week player. And unlike with Isak, I know he's definitely going to play. Absolutely,
that's for 34.
Definitely. Yeah. I may even bench him this week, actually, possibly. I haven't decided. It's probably him versus McAllister.
Chelsea away? Yeah, Chelsea ain't...
I might go double Chelsea defence just for the crack.
I'd look at it and I could sell Kane to Tony over the 33 and 34. I think Tony will outscore Kane in the next two.
I don't like it. I would prefer to go with an all-in, but I think I think there's every chance I'll go double Chelsea defence and still play Tony.
Yeah.
Might be the right call for it. I think clean sheets, by the way, in this particular game, week 33, are going to be very difficult to find.
That Tony goal was possibly one of my favourites, just because I knew so many people on free hit had gone on Moreno or Mings or Villa defence. That helped my rank quite a lot, even though I didn't own
my favourite was, from an FPL perspective, was Douglas Luiz's goal, to know that it cleared out the double Brentford that I'd transferred out from my team. So, Villa not at their best. And as I discussed last week, though, they were obviously super against Newcastle. But Brentford's, unlike kind of any other game, it becomes very stop-start and stuff, doesn't it? Have you seen Kevin Sade's miss?
No.
Wow. That's up there with miss of the season. Probably is miss of the season. He gets on the end of a through ball and he heads it first time and he shouldn't. And Robin Olsen's come on for Emi Martinez, who went off at half-time. Only illness, by the way. Apparently Emi Martinez, so it's every chance he'll play tomorrow night.
This weekend, was he?
Anyway, moving on, Suj.
Yes. No, I don't mean you. Yeah, I mean James Maddison.
Yeah, but that's all I can think about is Tottenham at the moment.
Not everything I say is a rivet Spurs.
Dean Smith, I got the call at 10 a.m. Yeah, well, sorry guys, it was a Friday deadline. And then Olsen completely fumbles the save, and Sade's behind him. Just got an open goal, and he could take 99 touches and walk it in the goal, and he decides to take it first time really quickly, and his body's not set, and he just shanks it wide. He's got favouritism over Vissa in the front three at the moment. I imagine at Chelsea tomorrow night they'll probably go to a back five. I imagine Chelsea fans can correct me, but I'm sure Chelsea will probably play a back three with probably James and Chilwell as wing backs. Tell you what, if you're looking for 1 week punts, don't think the Chelsea guys would recommend them, but as I said, I think clean sheets would be hard to find this week, and so therefore I definitely intend to play Ben Chilwell this week from the offensive side of things. For Villa, any consideration, Watkins, for captaincy this week? No?
You mean for 33? No. I'm going to stick with Haaland.
As good as he's been, and he has been absolutely brilliant, it's now 3 blanks in games he started under Unai Emery. And I think after this week, he becomes expendable. But I think for those wildcarding who want to leave a player in and make a transfer for 34, he'd be near the top of the agenda, I think. What I'd be thinking, take Jota as an example. Liverpool go to you Wednesday. Do we think Jota starts again?
I'm going to say no.
Don't think he starts against you?
No, he's played 2 games in a week after coming back. I don't think he will.
Well, I think as discussed with Dan on COTC on Friday...
He needs to get some minutes, mate.
Yeah, but I think they'll just keep building that. I think Núñez would be the bigger threat.
Okay.
I think it will go the same 3 again. But that 3 isn't going to play West Ham, Tottenham and Fulham.
Agreed.
So if you're going Jota, does he just play Tottenham at home? Now, James, that's enough. Yeah, he probably is, actually. But there's no guarantee of the double. So the point I'm getting at is, if you go Watkins for this week, take in a little bit more information and leave yourself up open to go sort of Jota, Núñez or Martial. Leave the money in the bank and leave that open as your final decision. Because I think for many, we don't have all the information. And psychologically, if you go Jota, you want him to play twice in 34, right? If he gets benched against West Ham, I'd be far more confident that he gets the 2 starts in the one that matters most. Because let's be honest as well, of Liverpool's next 3 fixtures, West Ham away is the toughest.
Yep.
The other 2's at Anfield, right?
Agreed.
Being serious.
Yeah. Yep.
So I would still consider Watkins. I think the idea of investing now in a Moreno or a Mings has gone. You could similarly set it up that sort of way with a defensive one this week. I think largely you'd probably play them this week at home to Fulham. As I said, I think clean sheets would be hard to find, but they do have tough fixtures to come. And I think they had to keep winning to have a chance of 4th. But there's every chance to qualify for Europe. Well, they're 2 points behind Tottenham, and Tottenham still got to go to Villa Park. Yeah. You might as well put them 1 point ahead, mate.
Palace 0, Everton 0. That was, I think...
Humdinger, apparently.
Well, yeah, I didn't watch the game, obviously, but the stats, like, there was a few shots on target between them. They managed 7, but I think it was dead food.
Yeah, it'd be disappointing one for those who gambled on Eze Elise. If you went defensive, you're quite happy with it. As said earlier near the start, it was surprising that Johnston got the 10-pointer as opposed to the 6s that, say, Gay and Anderson got. Yep. They're one who we've not spoken about on this pod. Who
Palace.
I think if you're not bench boosting your wild card in, I think maybe you should look at them, Suj. Because someone like Gay, and I think it'd probably be the pick of the defensive ones at the moment, will cover you great every week. And he's just a substitute for you every week. And any week that if you had a problem and he had to come into the team for you, he's perfectly reasonable. He's up to 4.5. Is that a little bit more than what you'd want to spend on someone that you're not likely to start often?
Well, there are players with doubles that I think I'd rather have. So chuck a couple of names out. You mentioned Lindelof at 4.1. I think that's fine. Sofal at West Ham. He's only 4 million, mate. And that's cheap. And he's playing right back. And he does get forward with the odd assist. I'd rather those guys than the Palace player at the moment, to be honest with you. I'm not saying they're bad picks. There's other options.
Yeah, again, Eze and Lise now versus the Brighton players.
No, can't do it. Even
though their fixtures are great. And I think even Edouard is obviously playing regularly. I know people might be looking at that as a potential enabler, which is okay, by the way. But again, I'd ask people to look back at it and go, when will you actually play him? It's all right looking and going, they got Bournemouth at home still to go and Forest at home. But when them fixtures actually come round, with what the rest of your makeup in your squad's going to be, are you actually going to play Edouard? And therefore, you might as well just go for Sam Greenwood and put an extra $1 million in the bank. And that's the difference that gets you a Trent, maybe, for example, or a Jota or whatever. So, yeah, I couldn't make much case for them. Everton avoid. They changed system a little bit. It won't be played more of a 10. I've spoken about these big spatial issues between defence and midfield. They didn't have them at the weekend. Onana was close to being fit. I would imagine that he would come back in to the team for the game against Newcastle, and they will go to more of a 4-5-1 in that fixture against Newcastle on Thursday. and Everton fans will be right up for it. Have you seen all this farcical letter that Bill Kenwright put out over the weekend?
No, I haven't.
Kind of defending his position and stuff and making excuses for what's happened at Everton. And it's been condemned massively by Everton fans. But I know, and we spoke about this time last year about discontent amongst Everton fans. They'll be right up for Thursday until the game's gone. I suspect I don't see him getting anything against this Newcastle, to be honest.
Leicester 2, Wolves 1. Oh, Everton against Newcastle.
It's Thursday night. I don't see Everton getting anything, even though it's at Goodison. I don't.
Nah, nothing. This is a Newcastle team that scored 11 between the two of us.
They can create the environment where they can. You've seen they've beaten Arsenal there, right? You can create the environment at Goodison Park that makes it tough for teams. And Newcastle might think job's done after yesterday.
Nah, I don't think so. I think their mentality is good at Newcastle.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I don't see it. Leicester 2, Wolves 1. I mean, obviously, it's a much bigger result for Leicester being where they were in the table than for Wolves, because it's now taken them out of the relegation zone.
Wolves will be fine.
And has ended a run of defeats for Leicester. Yeah, I'm not saying Wolves will still have any trouble because they're already on 34 points, but it meant more to Leicester to get out of the relegation zone. I mean, I look at it. One of Leeds, Leicester or Everton, there's likely to join the others going down. It's not great, but what happens when
you... Are you ruling out Bournemouth after yesterday?
Yeah.
You think they'll be all right?
I still think they'll be all right. They actually didn't play... defensively, they were a bit shit, but attacking, they didn't play too bad.
I think it's another thing that just sums up the state of Tottenham, the fact that Bournemouth won at Tottenham and also won at Leicester. And all I'm saying is, are those results, they're not false, they deserve to win those games. But did it give a false narrative that Bournemouth were doing better than they are?
Yeah, possibly.
That's all.
Possibly. Iheanacho put him on the pitch and he'll score. It was a penalty.
Doesn't matter.
And had Vardy not gotten kicked in the foul to win the penalty, would Vardy have taken the penalty?
Yeah, I'm sure Vardy would have.
So a bit of fortune in that. If anybody went in,
it was also his pass that put Vardy away.
Yeah.
Because he played in a 10 position. Now, I don't know the status of Jamie Vardy in terms of the injury, which he obviously picked up in the incident where Sarr fouled him, which was erratic. I know Sarr didn't mean to catch him, but was erratic. All he had to do was shove Vardy wide. Iheanacho, I think, would be on the penalties if Vardy doesn't play.
Tielemans
is
dirt
cheap. He's 5.9. Yep. And if Vardy's
Leeds
out,
away, Everton at home.
I think he'll go back through the middle. So what Dean Smith did, they changed to a back four. And he dropped Harry Souttar. So I think we could probably say Siyuncu and Fass are probably first choice now. And the two fullbacks, Christensen and Castagne, really like to get forward as they did on the goal. Samari came in for Ndidi, and Samari's role, by the way, in the second goal, I know there's a lot of focus on, the two fullbacks combined. Samari's first-time pass for Christensen after his own little 1-2 was really good. And unfortunately, as I've said many times this year, Wilfred Ndidi has regressed alarmingly. So he played Samari and Tielemans in midfield. Tielemans got caught for the first goal. Leicester can be a bit ponderous in possession. And they played Iheanacho at 10. And Daka played wide on the right with Vardy up front. And Tete played right wing. It was basically 4-2-3-1. So Iheanacho played a deeper role. So if you're looking at heat maps and all those sort of things from the first half, that's not going to help you. Obviously, later in the game, went further up front. And I'm sure if Vardy's unavailable tomorrow night, if there's a choice to play Iheanacho or Daka, surely, it has to be Iheanacho. And we've mentioned about having Watkins versus Fulham for this 1 week. Why not him against this Leeds?
Yeah, I'm tempted.
And if you get stuck, particularly for bench boosters, if you get stuck, you end up playing him at home to Everton in 34. It's a couple of good fixtures. And remember what we kind of said near the top is it is difficult at the moment to find players that everybody else isn't focusing on. Yeah. Someone like him is that guy, even if it's just for the 2 weeks, I think should be considered. For someone like me who's planning through, I've not got the time or the luxury to make that sort of move. I think Wildcarders should strongly consider someone like him at the moment. Barnes and Maddison might both be back tomorrow night. The word on Harvey Barnes was that he was going to rejoin training yesterday with the aim of him being back for Tuesday. It's probably more likely he's a sub than starts. James Maddison is obviously how his Dickie Tummy's feeling, isn't it? Because the doctor gave Dean Smith the call on the Saturday morning. Wouldn't you call the boss yourself?
I think it's all a bit sus. And it's not the first time where he's suddenly illness. It happened on the Brendan Rodgers as well, where he was unwell.
You're not saying he's feigned this, are you, Suj?
I'm just saying some people get kept off work with a little bit of a runny nose easier than others do.
I don't think he feigned illness. I think he cares about that football club. He's been there for a while.
He comes across very genuine.
He speaks very well. I don't think that's the case. I mean, he probably woke up Saturday morning and had the shits. He'd probably been out with Vardy on the Friday night. Who knows?
Vardy played, so you know.
For Wolves, just a brief note. Ruben Neves didn't start. And the reason Ruben Neves didn't start is because Gomez and Lamina in midfield have been performing really well. When I was looking through the tweets of Wolves fans at half-time on Saturday, it was very much, how good is Mario Lamina? It was a constant theme. Hamstring injury, which Brent Neves come on. Ideally, you'd have worked to a position where those two were going to play together. Lamina's physicality and off-the-ball work could be a big miss for Wolves in the next few. Neves is obviously a better all-round player, great distributor, etc. But they'll miss Lamina, and note that with the positioning of the likes of Eze and Schlupp for that game at Molineux tomorrow night.
Liverpool 3, Nottingham Forest 2, made much more difficult for Liverpool than maybe it needed to. But ultimately, if you look at the XG, I mean, it was like 2 point something versus 0.3. So they had the better chances. They had more chances.
It'd be a good stat,
How
though.
many?
Just what I remember, Liverpool's open play XG from that was 0.44.
Okay. I'll give you a good stat, or it's more of a question. How many Liverpool players completed more passes than Nottingham Forest?
Well, I know that Nottingham Forest's pass total at the weekend was the second lowest in a Premier League game since Opta had been recording stats.
Wow.
And Watford, bizarrely...
They wouldn't have got to Tier 2 in Sky, mate. Yeah, 878.
Watford, bizarrely, against Portsmouth in a game in the noughties was the lowest. I'm going to say... Only 5, though, I'm going to say.
3
or
really?
4.
Yeah, Robertson, Van Dijk... and Konate.
Trent was only about a third of the passing numbers that he had at Leeds.
And Fabinho only had like 30, 40 passes.
Yeah, interesting.
I thought they would have dominated more because they had 500 and something passes to let Nottingham Forest's 78 in an entire game. So clearly, possession-wise, and the game was dominated by Liverpool.
It probably tells us a story in terms of how Forest set up, which was a little bit deeper, where they kind of generally split forwards, whereas Awani played as a one target, if you will, with Morgan Gibbs-White and Danilo a bit deeper, and then they had the protection of the two, I think it was Freuler and Mangala, wasn't it, behind that. So they probably boxed against Liverpool's four-man box and stopped the ball going in there so much. I imagine that's what's happened, because it didn't stop Liverpool having high possession numbers. It probably just meant they've been going side to side a lot more. And it's worth saying, as I'd said, Liverpool didn't create a lot from open play. The goals have all come from set pieces. And if you're a Forest fan, you've got to be sick about that, because actually, if Liverpool just overwhelm you, which they're very capable of doing, then you accept that sort of thing, don't you? You don't accept goals from set pieces being scored. The second goal, Jota's second goal, to be able to, from a control, from a wide free kick position, to be able to chest, knee and volley before anyone's tackled, it's impossible. It's impossible that someone happens. And they end up in a position where they don't really have a flat line like most teams do, kind of held on the edge of the area. It's kind of broken, and then 3 go back and the rest don't. It's so bizarre. Like, get the basics right, or you've got no chance. And the third goal as well, Salah gets his foot on it, basically on the ground, right? Another ball's coming to the box. Is someone going to get in front and head this away? No, and that's why they lost the game. It actually became Liverpool's set-piece threat versus Nottingham Forest's long throw threat. One of the bizarre stats you might see from the weekend is the amount of penalty area touches that Felipe had for Nottingham Forest. So they stayed with this back three, and a lot of Forest's attacking threat during the game was created, as was Morgan Gibbs-White's goal, from Niakate long throws, with Felipe primarily the target. Expect to see more long throws in Nottingham Forest games for the rest of this season. And those who don't deal with balls into the box aerially will struggle. Against Brighton, they have a couple of units in Duncan Webster. But if you can beat that, I wouldn't say they're the biggest team otherwise. Let me put it like that. Brentford at the weekend, you'd think of the sort of team that would probably deal with that quite well.
Yep.
If Nottingham Forest are going for long throws, how long do you think the ball will be in play for Brentford against Nottingham Forest on Saturday?
55 minutes.
Is that ambitious?
Maybe.
For Liverpool, I think if you can get the Trent, you should do it, but not necessarily this week. I'm sure most wildcarders will manipulate. Are you going to go Trent?
I need to find a way.
Do you not have a little bit of an inkling, though, that the saving of money on Konate, we're not saying, people say, can Konate cover Trent? No, probably not. It's a little bit, can Jota cover Salah? No, probably not. But you are putting extra money in the bank by going that sort of route. Salah's not a certainty for me. I don't own him at the moment. I'm not going to buy him this week unless Bruno Fernandes was ruled out for Manchester United, for example, in which case, yes, I would. I obviously would like to get him in at the weekend, but I don't know who the sacrifice is going to be. And I feel like for most people running through, the fixture is tough enough that waiting the week and having the additional information on the likes of Jota, etc., might pay. You wouldn't consider Konate saving, no?
No, I would in Sky. I think it's a more substantial saving because Konate can still pick up pass tier and tackle tier in this format. I think Trent. I'm
very interested. Fast forward to Friday, we'll have another conversation about it. But very interested in Núñez. And I didn't start, and I know Jota's got the favouritism at the moment, but I think of what could happen to my team next Sunday and know that the one that will hurt out the most is Núñez if he decided to play him through the middle. It'd go off mad, mate.
Let's talk about the Sunday games because we're getting there towards Spurs. And we had a funny stat from the Liverpool Forest game. We'll pick up a couple when we talk about your game, maybe. But first up was Bournemouth 0, West Ham 4. A game that I was pretty confident actually that we would win. It's not on Sky, so I had to find a stream. Missed the first goal because I couldn't find anything that was working, and an alert pops up. 1-0, fair play. Antonio scored early. I think West Ham are very different at the moment in terms of everything that made good West Ham last year that we didn't do this year has suddenly come back. Being able to be aggressive and counter-attacking, like being aggressive pressing at the front, and being very difficult to beat, and the players putting in a shift and it not making mistakes. And I don't think we were massively better than Bournemouth footballing wise, but we were just more aggressive, more clinical, and bullied them a little bit more. When a better team plays a better footballing team plays one that's not as good and then outworks them a little bit, it's going to be very difficult. Set pieces, they're defending. Pony.
Yeah, they've had a big problem with that all season.
You can't be having Paqueta picking up a free header. Antonio's not exactly tall. I mean, if he's physical, but he's not exactly tall. And then Rice unmarked at the back post to make it 3-0. At that point, the game was dead. We then let them have the ball and build up passages of play, and they did have and create chances. And they're not a bad footballing team, but their defence isn't good enough. So if they can keep it tight at the back, they always give themselves a chance in a game. But we went up early. We haven't scored a goal in the first 15 minutes this season, I think, until this game.
Yeah, and he had 6 away goals before yesterday or something.
We'd only won 2 away games before. So to win so comprehensively and have a week where we've
it's a couple, Fulham and now Bournemouth clean sheets away from home.
Yeah, it's slowly coming and has been a bit better. So yeah, it's comfortable for West Ham, I think, to be honest with you, in the end. Found the system, the same team is playing week in, week out, and Paqueta's suddenly taking control of games in the middle of the pitch. I don't think if Bournemouth fans would come away from this thinking it was a bad day at the office, but it wasn't disaster, right? They weren't awful. They just were a bit shit defending set pieces. Solanke had a few chances. Fabianski did have to make a few saves. Had they got back to 2-1 or 3-1 or 3-2, they would have made a better fist of it. But we were able to keep them out. And now we've got a bit of a way of playing. Creswell's back in the team when we're playing a back four. Soufal's bombing forward at 4 million. I think Soufal's a decent shout.
It's Cresswell.
Cresswell's more...
Yeah, with Cresswell, you get set pieces with that, wouldn't you?
Yeah, you do. 4.7. It's not bad, but I'd rather just take Soufal at 4.
Yeah, I agree with
that. Antonio's in the team. He's obviously got 3 goals this week with the Europa League Conference League goals and stuff.
I think, listening to you talking there and what I watched of the game last night, and I tried to watch lots of bits of games that didn't involve my team, it dawned on me that I think he looks fresh and fit again, and actually might be
confidence player.
The real thing that's changed the most for you over these last few games is his consistent place in the team and that outlet, because he's beast mode when he's out, isn't he?
Always.
And I know West Ham fans are very critical of him, but I feel like he's playing quite well at the moment.
So it's critical of quality rather than work rate. Like, he'll run the channels and he'll try and put himself about, but his end ball has been bad. But he needs players
scoring
to
as well.
Play off, right? Benrahma and Paqueta and Bowen getting close to him. And I think they're all interesting shouts. Like, Benrahma had a good game again. He's good value, but he's not better than the Brighton players with their doubles. Same for Bowen. He's not better than a Grealish, for example, at the same price. You couldn't pay for that
Bowen price at the moment.
No, you're not going to go Antonio over Watkins or Isak or Jota or any of these guys. Even Iheanacho, I think, is a better shout.
Antonio will give Liverpool some drama.
He will, but I'd rather Iheanacho with Leeds, to be honest with you. So, yeah, and even Solanke played okay. He had a few good chances.
It's a running theme
was
for him.
right. It just doesn't ever feel like it's going to go off and haul huge.
They look like they started with a back three and binned it because it wasn't working. Adam Smith came in on the right-hand side because Vina had been doubtful, so moved Tavernier to the left and looked like they shoved that more towards the back four as the game went on, as it got away from them. I think Bournemouth fans should probably look at this as a bad blip, but if I'd have said some 6 points from the next 3 a couple of weeks ago, they'd have
taken it, right?
They would have snapped my hand off, mate. And you saying you still think they'll be all right?
I do. I actually do think they'll be all right. The others are playing so pony, mate.
I know. I think Southampton will beat them Thursday.
Yeah.
And depending on results elsewhere, it might do.
Yeah.
It might do. It might suddenly. I think they probably only need a couple of points. And with the fixtures they've got better fixtures than most of the others as well. This should be all right.
Yeah.
It should be all right. But I wouldn't deem them as definitely safe yet. It's still a little bit sort of probably one win. It's probably all they need.
I think so.
But if you don't get it.
No. Yeah, you can easily slip back in very quickly. I think West Ham will give Liverpool a difficult game on Wednesday. I feel like it's under the lights at home, and it's the first game where we're going in with a positive mindset. So I feel like it will almost be a celebration with the crowd. The atmosphere
the
will be
vibes
positive.
changed with the Arsenal second half, the Ghent game, and Sunday.
Yeah, I think going into it, that it was going to be a really lively atmosphere, which will make it all the more difficult. And then away at Palace, and if we can get even 3 points out of the next 2 points out of the next couple, we're done.
As I've said, I think this is Liverpool's toughest game left. It's playing yourselves.
And obviously from a Bournemouth point of view, from an FPL point of view, not really looking at anyone.
If you had Mo, consideration for captaincy, just take your West Ham hat off for a minute.
No, I wouldn't do it.
Are we really just saying Haaland versus the team that's top of the league?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And just one note on I mean, we'll talk about it more on Tottenham. I think you appreciate players more when they're your own. Like, you probably love Harry Kane more than the average fan because he's one of your own.
The average fan hates Harry Kane. It comes with the being England captain thing.
Appreciation of a goal scorer. But I feel like with Declan Rice, I feel like I probably over-appreciate him because he's playing for us. But my God, that guy is a player. Where whoever he goes to if it's a top 4 team next year, automatically, I feel like puts him in a title race conversation. Chelsea is a bit of a funny one because there's so many new players. But if he goes to Arsenal, puts him in the conversation. If he goes to Man United, it elevates him, puts him in the conversation.
If he goes to Tottenham?
You're not top 4, mate. Top 4 team. And even Liverpool would put him in the conversation. I don't think you've got too many problems.
I wonder if Newcastle would look and It'd be great for Newcastle.
I mean, any of them, it puts them in a title race conversation, and everything about that guy and the way he behaves with the club is just he's my favourite hammer of all time.
Deckers is really likeable. So he's really likeable. He's a good player. I think people get stuck in this idea of he's a holding midfield player because maybe they don't watch West Ham so much and watch more of England.
He's a baller. He's got amazing ability.
He's a great player.
Even the goal he scored against Ghent on Thursday,
you know what he is as well.
To the right, went to the left.
He is, in my opinion, in terms of his football ability, maximising the absolute best of his capability
in every which way.
I think he works hard,
really hard. I love him.
Like in training and stuff. I can believe that he works hard.
Yeah. I look at him and you want your players to stay, right? You want your best players to stay. But I like him more than I like West Ham, and I want him to go and be the best that he possibly can be. I know it's weird. Like, you don't want Harry Kane to leave, but you also want him to be the best he can be, and I don't think he will be with us. I want him to go on and show the rest of the world how much I love him.
Tottenham can't play a modern style of football with Harry Kane.
Yeah.
That's why I'm not against the idea of him going.
Yeah,
you lose the goals, you can't replace that.
I want that guy to show that he's as good as it gets. Anyway, let's
go.
Let's talk a little bit about Newcastle 6, Spurs 1. So Nottingham Forest had the second fewest touches in a game since Opta
completed
passes in a game since Opta recorded stats.
Yeah,
this was the second fastest that a team had got to 5-0.
Yeah,
in Premier League history.
How was it not the first? Watford fans can tell you.
Well, yeah, I mean, but City against Watford, you expect it could happen. Newcastle against Spurs.
You never expect a team to be 5-0.
Never
5-0.
As your friend Expressions is like, what am I watching? Rugby?
Or mate, Expressions, who jumps up and down when the other team score, which is a little bit weird because he has to make a show of himself for the camera.
I'm going to DM him because he's never going to reply, but I'm like, how is taking your shoes off and slamming them on the table showing a sign of frustration? Like, if I was upset and angry,
normal.
My first instinct wouldn't be to take my shoe off and slam it on the table during a live stream.
This is honestly true. I'm going to drop this in because actually as a Newcastle fan as well, it's the only time I've ever seen this. This actually happened in a pub in Wood Green about 10 years ago. Really good friend of mine, Newcastle fan, proper Geordie. He was pissed up and he took his shoes off and then had a fight. He had a fight, but decided he was going to take his shoes off. He sat calmly. He was having a row with someone. He sat down calmly, took his shoes off, and then had a bust up. What's that all about?
So I was watching my game, wasn't watching this, just seeing the goal alerts. But then I also did see at 25 minutes or something like that, Sarr coming off, Sanchez coming on. Immediately alarm bells. Is that another scapegoat? Because in the pre-match build-up, when they were flicking between the games, they were talking about Sarr getting a start, 20-year-old coming in, 3-man midfield, change the system. And it took 5 goals for him to be taken off and back to the traditional 3 at the back. And let's not make it 10. I don't know. Go on, you tell us. What the fuck happened there?
Let me firstly start by saying, because there's every chance it will get overlooked, Newcastle were brilliant. You should be very proud of your football team, Geordies. Absolutely.
They are up there as one of the most intense teams that go after you, aren't they?
What did I say last week?
Even when we went 3 or 4
the most intense team in
down.
the league playing the least intense team. How does anyone think anything else is going to happen?
So they did the same to us, right? 3 goals in the first 15, 20 minutes, just because of their intensity. And you're like, oh, shit, these guys are coming at us fast.
They're great. And the fact that they've held this intensity, because one of the concerns I had going into the World Cup, we'd looked at their running stats and they were off the charts against everybody else. And we'd said, could they hit like an April period where it's like the legs have gone? It hasn't happened. And actually, you look at the fact they've gone through large parts of this season without Isak and wonder how much better this might have been if he'd been available for him all the time. Yeah. Because he is brilliant.
He's a good player.
He's got every tool in his locker, Alexander Isak. I really think he's a super striker. They played really well. Longstaff coming back made a big difference for them. And the only reason the scoreline wasn't bigger than what it ended up with is because they were able to fart-arse their way through the game. I mean, actually, in the first 15 minutes of the second half, we didn't play too badly, which is easy to do at 5-0 down. But actually, the goal we scored was a really nice goal. Willock's assist, by the way. That's assist of the season. closed the book on that. If he's not in the next England squad, I'm going to have a riot. Absolutely. I wondered watching the game, because I had time to think about these sort of things because it was so bad. If he'd have been a difference maker for Arsenal on Friday night, with Xhaka being unavailable, actually. Really good player, Joe Willock. I think he can play multiple midfield positions. Has to be in the next England squad, and Longstaff's absolutely worth a shout for that as well. Right, Spurs. So, the team drops. Okay, fine. Most of us wanted a back four. Most Tottenham fans wanted a back four. What we didn't want was what we saw. So even once you'd seen the team, you go, right, it's 4-3-3. It's Skip, Sarr and Højbjerg in midfield. They're going to make sure they don't get outnumbered in there. It's a repetitive theme. We speak about it every week with Tottenham. Get outnumbered in midfield against almost every team in this league. Okay, he's going to put 3 in now, which counteracts, I guess, a little bit for the fact you've picked 2 wingers at fullback. Now, in the right-back position, there's not a lot of alternative, but he could have played Japhet Tanganga there. It's not like he's never played there. In fact, he was man of the match opening day of last season against Raheem Sterling at White Hart Lane, playing at right-back. Left-back, Ben Davies, I presume, wasn't fit enough to start. I'm going to guess that's probably the same for Clement Longley, although that's a bit weird because his match fitness should be fine. He only wasn't available for the midweek worth of training. In any case, he's picked Perisic and Porro at fullback. Okay, right. There's no point going deep with these guys because the wingers, right, aren't fullbacks. So I saw the 3-man midfield and thought, okay, I can see some logic in here. What I think happened was, and I can only assume this because I watched the game twice, is that Christian Stellini did not watch Aston Villa against Newcastle last week.
Okay,
he can't have. He cannot have watched the game. In his pre-match presser, he said whoever was interviewing him said about, so it's 4-3-3. It's not 4-2. It's not 4-3-3. Okay, what is it? And then people were speculating, is he playing Sarr at centre back? Like, no, can't be doing that. What he decided to do was play Ollie Skip as a 10. I presume to try and stop Bruno Guimaraes getting on the ball.
Yeah. It smacks of when. Do you remember when we were playing Flynn Downs as a 10, and we're like, what for? Because to start a high press, I can understand it or whatever, but it never worked. Even for us, it's awkward.
The person who should have done that job, if we wanted someone to do that job, was Kane.
Okay, drop in a bit.
Yeah, and you still played a 3 as the protectors. Then you stopped them playing. I'd spoke about shoving Kulusevski from a wide position into a 10 position to give overloads around Guimaraes, do what Ramsey and Buendia did to them last week. Never existed. So he played 4-2-3-1. He played Oliver Skip as a 10. I don't know what that was about, Suj. So he brought Sanchez on. And I have to say, Davinson Sanchez did really well, and I'm not joking. He was probably Tottenham's best player.
But he won't get the plaudits in the media or with the fans.
You can't give any Tottenham player plaudits for what happened yesterday. When I say he was Tottenham's best player, I'm probably at 5 out of 10, right? But actually, he didn't play badly. He did okay on the ball. I realised from 5-0 Newcastle weren't pressing in the same way. But you know what? He did all right yesterday, and fair dues to him after what he suffered last week. So yeah, at 5-0 he decides, right, this is going to be 10-0. And at that point I was thinking, if we're lucky. And he changes to the back 3. And it calmed down a little bit. But then, Willock had another great chance to make it 6-0. It felt like, obviously in the first half, everything they hit went in, right? It was just a case that in the second, particularly later in the game, it's just things weren't going in the same way. I take solace from the fact you'd mentioned the Man City-Watford game. There's only been 3 times in Premier League history a team's been 5 up at half-time. The other game was Leicester's at Southampton. And the other...
9-0.
Yeah, and so you had Leicester won 9-0 and City beat Watford 8-0. So to get out there at 6-1 from 5-0 down after 20 minutes, I'm almost sitting here going, thank fuck for that. Because if Newcastle wanted to, they'd have got anything they wanted yesterday, and that's irrespective of the change of system that Tottenham did. It's just a case the chances didn't go in the second half in the same way. There's a number of players who played for Tottenham yesterday who I'd quite happily never see again. If that's the end of Hugo Lloris's Tottenham career, that's quite sad. Hugo's been brilliant for Tottenham for over 10 years. But even I have to put my hands up now and say, he can't save Toffee anymore, and Fraser Forster has to go in goal. The word is that he got a hip injury at half-time, which actually I believe because he did an interview after the game.
He said he strained it doing a kick, taking a goal kick or something.
I think if it'd really been a bust-up, as some people reporting and stuff, I don't think he does that interview after the game.
No.
So, Fraser Forster should finish the season getting a goalkeeper. He's an absolute priority for Tottenham in the summer. Porro, I wouldn't say I never want to see him again. But as I said last week, bring back Emerson Royal, always forgiven. Emerson Royal's agent said last night that he needs to go to a team that's fighting for titles now, like Real Madrid. I don't think he gets in a Real Madrid team, to be honest, but this Tottenham team would be better for him to come back in it. Porro hadn't played right back for about 3 or 4 years. What I'd have done with that is played like Longley or Davis at left back and have Perisic play left midfield so you could shunt it along that would allow him to go forward any case. He can't play right back. And I spoke, you'll know, the patrons will know this, I spoke about this in January and said, don't buy him. Don't give Conte any more money because you've just moved further and further. It's like you spent 40 million on a player and the only position he can play is wing back. Fucking hell. So it's not just that he's broken. The whole team's fixed that he can only play 3 at the back and basically near enough. Everyone else is capable of playing it or moves system to move into it. But your whole squad is lopsided to play to a back 3. That's why it's going to take so long for whoever comes in to fix this. Dyer, oh Jesus. Romero. Christian Romero is probably, I'm going to say, the most overrated centre-back in the league, I think. First minute, the way he lets Joe Linton come in. First minute, Suj. He's absolutely laughable. He's a liability. I feel sorry for anyone who plays centre-back next to him. Oh, yeah, but he's good on the ball. His distribution's good. People get obsessed looking at what players do with the ball, and he's too slow on it as well. Tottenham need to, in the system Tottenham play, Tottenham need to be fast and quick on the counter-attack, and he slows things down. Off the ball, he's a liability. Car crash. I'm not sure if I'd have given 2 for that performance yesterday.
Well, we have Tottenham.
Højbjerg.
Yeah.
I said when Bentancur got injured, he'd be our most important player for the rest of the season. I saw a player yesterday when Newcastle attacked who was walking. Unacceptable. Whatever your football ability, unacceptable. Harry Kane played okay. Son, as per usual, non-existent. Kulusevski, no better. Sarr, in terms of Sarr getting taken off, and the games that Sarr's played this season, funny. Conte threw him in against Arsenal at home, randomly. Threw him in. Yeah. Okay, didn't work. He got overrun in midfield, but he did okay. Then he played in Milan in the San Siro. He was brilliant. It was our best player, and he played with Skip. And what I think was important with that was Milan obviously scored early and they were happy to sit on the counter-attack all game. And it suited him that he was playing against that. Everyone assumed he was so good in the San Siro that he'd keep playing. He didn't. He's barely seen a minute since. Why? And then you throw him suddenly back into that. Jesus. Anyway,
Tottenham coming at the patrons this Wednesday, and we'll get into a lot more detail than that.
I can't believe that Stellini will be in charge Thursday.
Well, we'll find out, and we'll have a conversation.
I think he might be. You should just tell him, thanks very much, see you later, because you're literally out of your depth. At least with Mason, it won't be any better, by the way. But just at least have someone there who the fans can identify with and is not linked to Conte anymore.
Yeah. Cool. That's the games, James. Anything you want to cover off on Brighton, City, Chelsea, Man United?
Yeah, just briefly, I think it's probably worth saying for Wildcarders particularly, what's the best Brighton 3 to start with?
For me, Steele, assuming he's back.
So we need to talk about that.
I mean, I'm sticking. Steele's already in my team, so he's just going to stick there for me. I'm going to buy another doubler. So Edison actually is probably.
He's a really awkward one for Wildcarders. My instinct is he'll be back in goal still. But I don't say it with certainty because Sanchez has not done anything wrong in the Chelsea or Manchester United games. He's not done anything wrong. And the save from Rashford in extra time yesterday, what a save that was. But I think Steele probably will come back in. It's more about distribution. Estupiñán versus Dunk?
Dunk, but I wouldn't get either. I'd just go with Steele if if you're confident. But I'd take Dunk over Estupiñán probably, just for assuredness. And I'd take March and Mitoma over McAllister. Those would be my...
March or Mitoma?
Mitoma.
I'm in agreement with that.
But then March, and then McAllister.
One note is, as I said, though, I think he knew that he couldn't beat Wan-Bissaka yesterday, who is still one of the best 1v1 defenders in the world, arguably, from a fullback perspective. His criticisms are not what he does defending, it's obviously on the ball. But he's played very well for Manchester United, I think, over the last couple of months. Aaron Wan-Bissaka looks revitalised, actually. He's such a difficult player to beat. So, yeah, if you got Heung-min Son this week, yeah, all right. I think Mitoma, March, McAllister would be the order. Veltman obviously came on late in the game, not late in the game, but about half hour to go yesterday, which freed Gross up from right back in centre midfield and moved McAllister higher up to a 10. I could force out a hit where I sold McAllister this week for Salah. It just doesn't feel right. I think I need a bit more information, but I might make that move going into the weekend. I also think the forwards are worth mentioning, particularly as Danny Welbeck got injured again yesterday. Well, at least it appeared that way. And I think we need to keep eyes and ears very close on Brentford news. Enciso and Ferguson are both 4.6, both very interesting. Ferguson obviously was unavailable yesterday. We don't know when he's going to be back. I would be very tempted, if I was wildcarding, to go Ferguson irrespective of his fitness as kind of like the 12th player. You know, says, oh, you're going to have to bench one this week. Maybe it's him.
Yeah.
And come back where that's set up really nicely for you for 36 and 37. I think the best three are probably the midfield three, but you're not going to... I don't think you're going to do that.
Agreed.
You could go probably with Rashford, Salah and go that way, but then it's you're cutting off City, Fernandes if you want that. I think on United, couldn't make a case for Fernandes over Rashford. Rashford's fits is going to go in. I think Martial's really interesting. De Gea, despite erratic performances, fixes a goalkeeper problem if you're concerned about Steele, where he'll obviously cover you to both doubles and they've got good fixtures. I think Lindelof would be worth the saving versus Luke Shaw now for that $1 million. Yes, there's every chance Shaw will go back to left back, and there's obviously more offensive threat on that. Is it worth the 1 million more? We've got a 4.1 Man United defender. Looks like he's going to play every game at the moment. So I think Lindelof is one. I said this a couple of weeks ago. There's always someone at the end of the season who's like 4.1, 4.2, comes out of nowhere, and he ends up in a lot of teams. I would definitely be going Victor Lindelof, I think, if I was wildcarding this week at that price. And then if you don't like United's fixture in a single, you can just bench it, obvious. Yeah. It just frees up a bit more money. City, I think the best three is Haaland, Grealish, Laporte.
Not Diaz.
No, I think Laporte. What
about Edison?
I hate it.
Why?
Because he don't save shit.
Okay. But he's going to play.
I think I'd rather play David Raya with harder fixtures for the rest of the season.
What makes you so confident Laporte over Aki or Kanji?
Well, Aki got a hamstring injury in Munich last week, so I don't know how long he's out yet, but hamstring, I think we can at least presume a couple of weeks.
Yeah, but Laporte versus Diaz, there's not enough in it. 0.4. 5.6 versus 6.
But Laporte's the natural left footer.
Yeah. Not convinced.
I'd go that way, I think, Laporte. I think Aki would have been the one, by the way.
Yeah.
He was the one you really didn't want to get injured, I think. John Stones is 0.1 cheaper, isn't he? Diaz is worth more. I think Diaz probably will play all the games. I'd just be conscious of things like Leeds at home in 35. Does he feel like he can get away with it in between the Madrid games? But I don't think he'll chop and change that as much as he has done for the most of this season. And that makes me think that he'll be keen to get Laporte up to the match fitness of the others, because he's the only one there now that's left-footed if Aki's out.
Okay.
I think Gundogan, if you don't want a City defensive, is a really cheeky differential to go for, to add to, but I wouldn't pick him over Grealish personally.
Yep.
Couldn't make the case for De Bruyne on value. The other one that's perhaps a bit naughty is Alvarez.
A few people, and there's a question on Twitter, James, that I've seen about going Haaland and Alvarez. I don't know. I don't know. You've
It's
got to play him.
It's a no for me. I think it might be a really nice one.
You've got to play him, and you might only get 10 minutes.
I'll tell you what I think.
It's worth it.
It might be a really nice one for 37, I think. If you've come out of Isak's double 36, and if, say, Gundogan, I think, directly impacts Alvarez, particularly. If Gundogan was out at that period, for example, I'd really fancy that then, to go into Alvarez 37. The problem is as well, you want to go 3 City, 3 United, 3 Liverpool, 3 Brighton if you're wildcarding this week. You do get stuck. You're stuck, aren't you? It's not that you can't go Mitoma. If Mitoma gets injured, you go to March, right?
Yeah.
But there's certain ones where you'll get stuck, won't you? And the forwards is one of them. You're not going Alvarez to Haaland, right? If you go Alvarez and it's shit, then it's 1 to get him out and then 2 to get the next City player, which you will want.
Yeah, understandable.
So I'm not hugely keen.
Okie dokie. I'm still toying around with this wildcard idea. I don't think I'll pull the trigger this week just because I don't need to. But
no, those who want a bench boost in 34 are going to do it now, aren't they?
Yeah.
I think for most other people, listen, I can't see your teams. It's obviously subject to what you've got. But this week's going to be rough for most people. I think if you're wildcarding and you're not bench boosting, like is the case for Suj, I think you should wait for 34.
Cool. James, do you want to tell everybody what they got to look forward to for the rest of the week? I've been through the Twitter questions. We've answered so many, or they're just facetious and asking you about Spurs.
Go on, ask me some shit Spurs ones. I'm here. I'm game.
We're going to save them for Tottenham on Wednesday. But yeah, go on. What have we got to look forward to this week?
So the People's Poll has said is City versus Arsenal themes. You can vote on that, either current combined best 11, all-time Premier League best 11 from those two teams, or we're going to open it up for a Q&A. That's available to vote on till about 5:30 via my Twitter account. Wednesday, Sky Fantasy. Thursday's Clash of Correspondence is Manchester City versus West Ham with Johnny Pringle and Chris Stone. Suj will be back with me for the Game Week Review podcast on Friday because it's midweek. That means there's deadline streams on YouTube
tomorrow.
5 tomorrow.
Yep.
And 10 a.m. Saturday morning. On Patreon, Q&A today. Tomorrow is differential show, Game Week 33 preview. Wednesday, Tottenham, which is so many people saying, what tier do I need for Tottenham? Yeah, it's intermediate. Thursday's a quiz on AC and Inter Milan ahead of that big encounter in the Champions League next week. And Friday will be the differential show, Game Week 34 preview. Advanced tier content includes a look at some classic City versus Arsenal matches. Chip Talk looking at wild cards specifically for this week and next week, and obviously setting out now whether you would or you wouldn't bench boost. And also includes team news streams tomorrow and Friday night as well.
Cool. Right, James, you ready?
If you want to support the show, www.patreon.com/Planet FPL. And you do it if you can afford to, and if you want to support the show.
Exactly that.
I don't suppose I'm going to tell you anything FPL-wise you haven't heard on this podcast.
No. Joe Grant says, these are all quick fire. We're going to smash from. I don't even know how long this pod is, mate. It tells us.
Hour 32.
Wow. Joe Grant, I was thinking, how many goals could Newcastle score in an hour?
It's hour 33 if you keep blagging.
Joe Grant, how happy is Suj with his prediction of Jota being a good pick? Well, I'm an FPL expert, so it's just part of my everyday picking players like Jota. He's hauled in one game. Like, this is like...
2.
Yeah, but I didn't pick him before the first one, so I only had him for the second. It's like... You can't get excited over one game. He's hauled in one game. It doesn't make him a good pick.
I would like to
who's a better pick?
I would like to state that I'm not an FPL expert.
Who's a better pick right now, Jota or Isak?
Depends.
So I'd go Isak over Jota right now if I had to pick one and hold till the end of the season.
I think if I was wildcarding, I'd go Martial.
Oh dear. Ramiz says he's got Bruno Fernandes. Is it worth the switch to Marcus Rashford? He can't have both.
My opinion on that would be yes if you can't have both. Only if you've got the luxury. I wouldn't like -4 it this week.
Yeah.
And he's probably won. If you look at chances that the likes of Willock and Joel Linton and even Longstaff had yesterday, it's probably one it's not worth the hit this week. I think for free, yeah, sure. The information, it might be that it opens up for you 34, maybe where you can have both. I don't know.
Dave, Mr. Simple Goal.
Hello, Dave.
he's still got his free hit. And he's struggling to know how to use it. He's well set for 34 and 36. So, would you suggest 37 to bring in mostly United and Chelsea assets, plus rejigging to optimal City, whoever that is at the moment, or hold to finish with a bang in 38?
My instinct on that would be to say 38. The only thing I'd say with that is I free hitted in 38 last year. And there were certain reasons to do it. I mean, like going Tottenham assets away to Norwich last day of the season, for example. But despite some big scores, it didn't quite go as well as it should have. Like the actual gain, like I gained more than what my normal team would have. But it wasn't as much as I'd want on a free hit going into a final day. And essentially you are going the 11 you've sold versus the 11. There's no gain, right? You do it in a double or a blank, there's gains. You'll have heard people say this week and go, I think people have free hitted this week, wasted it. Mine's a perfect example where I've gained about 40 points this week, and I've also had players I wanted in other weeks that come back into my team where I've had beforehand. It's not just about the 1 week. I went into this week with no Arsenal or no Liverpool. It was perfect justification for me. There's others who won't feel that way. There's others who definitely feel they'll get the gains in 34. May well do. I think the aggressiveness in 34
we talked
for many
about
will work
like
well.
my move to Haaland and captain the previous week was knowing that I was then going to free hit. Like if I had not free hitted this week, I wouldn't have bought Haaland last week. So the gain was already made. So yeah, I know what you mean.
I think for Dave, if Dave's set up quite well for 34, he's going to be set up quite well for 37, no?
Liverpool.
But you'd sell it if you wanted to.
Agreed.
Or keep it. You're not bench it, whatever.
Yeah.
Somebody's benching headaches. I keep screaming this at people, particularly game week 36, now that we know Newcastle and Brighton's going in there. Look at the headache people are going to have. Get Sam Greenwood just to make you feel like you wouldn't have bench boosted in that week. Game week 36 is, if you're going to have 6 Newcastle and Brighton in that week, which isn't a necessity, but if you are, bloody hell, it's going to be grim. You're benching people like Fernandes at home to Wolves and stuff. It really is grim in 36. But I think, I guess it depends. The best thing I could probably say to Dave in advice would be plan to go through where you use it in 37 or 38. So if you're saying if he feels he gets there and he needs to rejig the City, for example, if you want to punt a few Chelsea players then, but that's grim. I'd probably 38. It's maybe even a case to say this week.
Interesting.
Just in the sense that it's, depending on what you've got, the fixtures do look rough this week. I think, if you're sitting there, I've got 6 City and Arsenal and I don't want to look at that, skip it and start taking some wild punts like Alcaraz on a free hit and stuff. No, you're probably not. 37 or 38, and I'd be flexible with it, Dave, probably.
Cool. That, James, is a wrap on the questions. Listeners, thank you so much for tuning into this weekend's wrap-up of the games. We appreciate it. Just hit subscribe, like, notification bell, all of that stuff. Wherever you may be listening to the podcast, it helps get the word out there and spread it. We'll be back at you tomorrow.
I'm off to tell
more
Nico
content.
to clip all the bits where I told everyone last week, things I said last week, like Kane could score twice and we could lose 7-2. Or
I'm sure you'd only said 3-1. Like Newcastle could beat us 3-1 and Kane could score. It's 6-1.
I've seen the clip this morning. I think we'll get beat about 4-0.
Oh, fair play.
So, no. Nico got into the office before me and he was already clipping it. He knew exactly what to do. Cheers, mate.
Nice. Listeners, stay safe. Look after yourselves. Have a great week. Ciao for now.
Thanks, everyone. Play it your way. Remember, deadline tomorrow is at 6 p.m. UK time. Cue music, please, man, child.